They say that silence has a sound. I never believed it until I drifted past the ruins of Meridian Deep, where 3 moons hung like lanterns against the void, and the only song was the hum of my ship's dying engines. My name is Gordon. Some call me a pirate, some call me a wanderer. The Empire has called me many things over the centuries, none of them kind. But out here, beyond the reach of their iron fleets and golden lies, I am the timeless adventurer. Tonight, I want to tell you about the night I found something I thought I had lost forever. Not treasure, not victory, something quieter than that. Something that still whispers to me when the stars grow cold. It begins, as many of my stories do, with a choice I should not have made. The year does not matter. When you have lived as long as I have, years become like grains of sand, countless, indistinguishable, falling through fingers that never age. But I remember the feeling. I remember the way the light bent through the observation glass, casting shadows that moved like ghosts across the steel floor of my ship. I was tired, not the kind of tired that sleep can cure, the kind that settles into your bones when you have seen empires rise and crumble, when you have loved and lost more times than the stars can count, when you realize that immortality is not a gift, it is a sentence. But the distress beacon changed everything. It was faint, a whisper in the dark. Most ships would have passed it by, mistaking it for cosmic interference or the death rattle of some forgotten satellite. But I have learned to listen to whispers. They have saved my life more times than cannons or shields ever could. So I changed course. The coordinates led me to a place I had not seen in 200 years, Meridian Deep, once a thriving way station at the edge of Imperial space, now a graveyard of steel and silence. And somewhere in that graveyard, someone was calling for help.
The approach was slow. I let the ship glide on minimal thrust, conserving what little fuel remained in the secondary reserves. The primary engine had given out 3 days prior, victim to a skirmish with Imperial scouts near the Vandross Expanse. I had escaped, as I always did, but the ship bore the scars. Meridian Deep grew larger in the viewport. 3 moons circled the station like sentinels, each one reflecting the distant light of a dying star. The middle moon, they called it the glass moon, shimmered with an otherworldly glow, its surface smooth as crystal, untouched by time or war. I had stolen my first ship in the shadow of that moon. The memory arrived unbidden, as memories often do when you carry too many of them. I was younger then, though my face has not changed in all the years since. 27 forever, a curse wrapped in the skin of youth. I had been reckless, hungry for freedom, burning with the kind of anger that only comes from watching your home torn apart by empire greed. That anger had cooled over the centuries, tempered into something harder, something patient. The station itself was dark. No lights, no docking beacons, no signs of life. Just the skeletal framework of what had once been a bustling port. Shops and taverns and repair bays, all of it now open to the void, exposed like the ribs of some ancient beast. But the distress beacon pulsed on, steady, deliberate. Someone was here. I brought the ship into a slope orbit, scanning for the source. The sensors were old, temperamental, prone to phantom readings. But after a few minutes of adjustment, I found it. Docking Bay 12, the southern quadrant. I knew that bay. My hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, guiding the ship toward the darkened entrance. The docking doors were open, had been opened for decades by the look of them, frozen in place, half retracted like a mouth caught mid-scream. The docking clamps engaged with a shudder that ran through the hull. I felt it in my chest, that moment of connection. Ship to the station, life to ruin. For a moment, I sat in silence, listening to the systems wind down. The hum of the life support, the tick of cooling metal, the whisper of my own breathing. Then I stood, pulled on my coat, a long dark thing, worn soft by time, and checked the charge on my sidearm. Old habits. Even in places that seem abandoned, you learn to expect shadows. The airlock cycled with a hiss, and I stepped out into the bay. The air was thin but breathable, emergency reserves, or some automated system still clinging to function. The temperature was cold enough to see my breath, and the silence pressed against my ears like deep water. My boots echoed on the metal grating. Ahead, through the gloom, I could see the outline of cargo containers, stacked and forgotten. A service lift, halfway between floors. And beyond that, a corridor leading deeper into the station, illuminated only by the faint glow of emergency strips that flickered like dying embers. The distress beacon was coming from somewhere in that direction. I walked slowly, letting my eyes adjust. There is a rhythm to exploring dead places. You do not rush. You listen. You watch for movement in the corners of your vision, for the shift of shadow that does not belong. The corridor opened into what had once been a marketplace. Stalls lined the walls, their wares long since looted or rotted away. Holographic signs still flickered weakly overhead, advertising goods in languages I had not heard spoken in a century. And there, in the center of the marketplace, beneath the shattered dome that once held an artificial sky, I saw her. A figure, small and still, seated on the edge of a dry fountain. She was not looking at me. Her gaze was fixed upward, toward the glass moon, visible through the broken dome. Her hair was long, silver-white, and it moved slightly in the thin atmosphere, as though touched by a wind that did not exist. I stopped. For a moment, I wondered if she was real. Meridian Deep had a reputation for ghosts, not the kind that haunt, but the kind that linger in memory, in the spaces between what was and what remains. But then she spoke. "You would come," she said, and her voice was soft, almost musical. "I have been waiting a very long time."
I did not draw my weapon. Something in her tone, calm, patient, unsurprised, told me she was no threat. At least, not the kind that could be stopped with a bullet. "You sent the beacon?" I said, not a question. She nodded, still gazing up at the moon. "I did. 317 days ago. Nearly a year. The beacon had been transmitting for nearly a year, and no one had come. No one but me. I took a step closer. "Who are you?" She turned then, and I saw her face. Young, or so it seemed, though her eyes carried the weight of something far older. Her skin was pale, almost luminous in the dim light, and there were markings along her temples, intricate patterns like circuitry or ancient script. My name is Kael. I am the Keeper of Echoes." The title meant nothing to me, but I nodded as though it did. In my experience, people who give themselves grand titles are usually hiding something: fear, loneliness, a desperate need to be remembered. "Why call for help?" I asked. "What do you need?" She smiled, and it was a sad thing, fragile as frost. "I do not need help, Gordon. I called for you specifically, because you are the only one who can hear what I have to say." My name. She knew my name. I kept my expression neutral, but inside a thread of unease pulled tight. "How do you know who I am?" "Because I have been listening," she said simply. "For decades, for centuries. I have heard every ship that passed through this sector, every transmission, every whispered prayer to the stars. And your voice is unmistakable. It carries the weight of all the years you have lived." She stood, and I realized she was shorter than I had thought, fragile-looking, as though a strong wind might scatter her like ash. But there was strength in her posture, in the way she held my gaze. "I am a listener, a keeper of stories. That is what my people were before the Empire came. We did not build or conquer, we simply remembered. We held the echoes of all who passed through this place so that nothing would be forgotten." "Your people?" I asked. Her smile faded. "Gone, all of them. When the Empire raised Meridian Deep, they did not stop at the docks or the markets. They went deeper. They found the echo chambers, where we kept our records, and they burned them." She turned away, walking slowly toward the fountain. "But they missed one. Me. I was in stasis, hidden in the lower levels, meant to wake only if the station fell silent for more than 100 years. "And it did," I said quietly. "Yes." She sat again, her hands folded in her lap. "I woke to silence, to ruin, to the realization that I am the last, the only keeper, the only one who still remembers." I understood then the weight she carried. It was not so different from my own. Immortality has many faces. Hers was not the agelessness of flesh, but the eternity of memory. "Why call for me?" I asked again. "What do you want me to do?" She looked up at me, and for the first time I saw tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. "I want you to remember," she whispered. "When I am gone, when the last echo fades, I want someone to carry the stories forward, someone who will not die, someone who will not forget." The weight of her request settled over me like a cloak. I have carried many burdens in my long life: guilt, grief, the scars of battles won and lost. But this was something different. She was asking me to become what she was, a keeper, a witness. I should have said no. I should have turned and walked back to my ship, left her to her silence and her ghosts. I had enough weight already, but I did not. "Tell me," I said, and I sat beside her on the fountain's edge. "Tell me the stories. I will remember." Her smile returned, and this time it was warm, grateful. "Thank you," she said softly. "Let us begin with the first one. The story of the glass moon and the pirates who dared to gleam beneath its light."
And so she spoke, and I listened. Kael's voice was like water over stones, smooth, constant, gentle. As she spoke, the marketplace seemed to shift around us, the shadows deepening, the flickering lights growing steadier, as though the station itself were leaning in to listen. "Long ago," she began, "before the Empire spread its wings across the stars, Meridian Deep was a place of freedom. Rogues and dreamers gathered here, drawn by the promise of a life beyond laws and borders.
and among them was a woman named Aria Voss. I knew that name. Every pirate in the galaxy knew that name. Aria Voss, the Starfire captain. She had been a legend even in my youth, a figure whispered about in shadowed corners and late-night taverns. "You knew her," Kael said, reading my expression. "Of her," I corrected. "She died before I was born, or before I stopped aging." Kael nodded. "She died here, on this station, but her story does not end with death." She gestured toward the glass moon, visible through the shattered dome. Aria was not like other pirates. She did not steal for wealth or power. She stole because she believed that knowledge, technology, and beauty should belong to everyone, not locked away in Imperial vaults. "A noble thief," I said, a hint of amusement in my voice. "A dreamer," Kael corrected gently. "And dreamers are the most dangerous kind of rebel." She told me how Aria had assembled a crew of outcasts and idealists, how they had raided Imperial convoys not for gold, but for art and history and science, how they had distributed their spoils to colony worlds on the fringes, places the Empire had forgotten or abandoned. "The Empire tolerated her for a time," Kael said. "They saw her as a minor nuisance, a thorn easily plucked. But then she stole something they could not ignore." "What?" I asked. "The Codex of Stars, an ancient map, older than the Empire itself, showing pathways through space that should not exist, shortcuts between galaxies, doorways to places long forgotten." I leaned forward. "That is a myth, a pirate's fairy tale." Kael's eyes glinted. "Is it? Or is it simply something the Empire wanted erased from memory?" I said nothing. I have learned that the line between myth and history is thinner than most believe. Aria brought the Codex here, to Meridian Deep. She hid it somewhere on this station, and then she waited for the Empire to come. And they did. A fleet of warships, bristling with cannons and cruelty. They destroyed the station. They tried, but Aria was clever. She had rigged the glass moon with explosives, old mining charges hidden beneath the surface. When the Imperial fleet moved into position, she detonated them. I could picture it. The sudden bloom of light, the shockwave tearing through the vacuum, the warships tumbling like leaves in a storm. "She died in the explosion," Kael said softly. "Her ship was caught in the blast, but in her final moments, she sent a transmission across every channel, every frequency. She told the galaxy what she had done. She told them about the Codex, and she told them that it was still here, waiting." "And no one found it," I said. "Many tried. For decades, treasure hunters and scholars came to Meridian Deep searching. But the station is vast, and Aria was clever. The Codex remained hidden." Kael turned to me, her gaze intent. "You know where it is?" I stood, pacing away from the fountain. This was not what I had expected. A request to remember stories was one thing, but this was something else entirely. "Why me?" I asked, turning back to her. "Why not keep it hidden? Why not let it stay a myth?" "Because myths fade, but you do not. You will carry the Codex forward into times I cannot imagine, to places I will never see, and perhaps one day it will be needed. Perhaps one day someone will be ready to use it the way Aria intended, to break the Empire's hold on the stars." She took a step toward me, her gaze intent. "You are a pirate, Gordon.
a rebel, a man who has fought against tyranny for longer than most civilizations have existed. If anyone deserves to carry Aria's legacy, it is you." I looked up at the glass moon, considering. The idea of possessing such a thing, an ancient map, a key to forgotten pathways, was intoxicating. But it was also dangerous. The kind of danger that draws Imperial fleets and ends in fire. And yet, I have never been good at walking away from stories. "All right," I said quietly. "Show me."
Kael led me deeper into the station, through corridors choked with debris and silence. We descended via a service shaft, the walls lined with cables and conduits that had long since ceased to function. The only light came from a small lantern she carried, an elegant thing, its glow soft and golden. "How long have you been awake?" I asked as we climbed down. 17 months, she said. "Though time moves strangely when you are alone, some days feel like years, others pass in an instant." I understood that feeling. We reached the lower levels, and the air grew colder still. My breath misted in the lantern light, and frost clung to the metal walls like lace. "This was the residential district," Kael said, her voice echoing softly. "Families lived here once. Children played in these corridors. I could almost see them. Shadows of laughter, the ghosts of ordinary lives." It made the silence heavier. We came to a door, sealed and marked with symbols I did not recognize. Kael placed her hand against the surface, and the markings on her temples began to glow faintly. The door shuddered, then slid open with a groan of ancient mechanisms. Beyond was a chamber unlike anything I had seen on the station. It was untouched by ruin, pristine and still. The walls were lined with crystalline structures, memory cores, I realized, each one holding countless voices, countless stories. "The echo chamber," Kael said softly, "the heart of our archive." I stepped inside, awed despite myself. The crystals pulsed with faint light, creating patterns that shifted and flowed like water. It was beautiful, haunting. "Aria hid the Codex here," Kael said, moving to the center of the chamber. "She knew that the Empire would never think to look in a place of memory. They do not value such things." She knelt and pressed her hand to the floor. A section of the crystal surface slid aside, revealing a small compartment beneath. Inside was a data crystal, no larger than my thumb. It glowed with a pale blue light, and as Kael lifted it, I felt a strange pull, as though the crystal were calling to me. "This is it," Kael said, holding it out to me. "The Codex of Stars." I took it carefully, feeling its weight, or lack thereof. It was impossibly light, as though it were made of nothing but captured starlight. "What will you do with it?" Kael asked. I closed my fingers around the crystal. "I do not know yet, but I will keep it safe, and when the time is right, I will decide."
She nodded, satisfied. That is all I can ask. We stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the glow of 1,000 memories. Then Kael spoke again, her voice softer now. There is something else I must tell you, Gordon, about yourself. I looked at her, surprised. About me? Yes. She gestured to the memory cores around us. When I woke, I listened to the echoes stored here and found something strange, a record of a ship that docked here centuries ago. A young man, newly cursed with immortality, desperate for answers. My chest tightened. That was me. I know, she said gently, and I know what you were searching for. A cure, a way to undo what had been done to you. I said nothing. The memory was too raw, even after all this time. You never found it, Kael continued, but the echo, it recorded your words, your prayer, and I think you should hear it. She touched one of the crystals, and suddenly a voice filled the chamber. My voice, younger, desperate. I do not want to live forever. I do not want to watch everyone I love turn to dust. Please, if anyone is listening, tell me how to die. The words hung in the air, heavy and aching. Kael looked at me, her expression kind. Do you still feel that way? I was quiet for a long time. Then I shook my head. No, I have made peace with what I am. The weight is still there, but I have learned to carry it. Good, because the galaxy needs you, Gordon, now more than ever.
We left the echo chamber in silence, the codex safely tucked into the inner pocket of my coat. Kael walked beside me, her lantern casting long shadows on the walls. When we reached the marketplace again, she stopped. I cannot go any further, she said. I frowned. What do you mean? The stasis that kept me alive, it is failing. I can feel it. I have perhaps hours left, maybe less. My throat tightened. There must be something we can do. Medical supplies on my ship. No, she said firmly. This is not a wound that can be healed. I was meant to wake for only a short time, long enough to pass on the stories, long enough to find someone like you. She smiled, and it was peaceful, accepting. I am ready, Gordon. I have done what I was meant to do. I wanted to argue, to fight, to refuse this ending, but I have lived long enough to know when a fight is already lost. What will happen to you? I asked quietly. I will return to the echo chamber, she said, and I will join the others. My voice will become part of the archive, another story among thousands. And perhaps one day someone else will listen. She reached out and took my hand. Her skin was cold, but her grip was steady. Thank you for coming, she whispered. Thank you for remembering. I will not forget, I promised. Not you, not Aria, not any of this. She knew, and then, softer, that is why you are the timeless adventurer. She released my hand and turned, walking back toward the corridor that led to the echo chamber. I watched her go,
the golden light of her lantern fading into the dark. And then she was gone.
I returned to my ship alone. The bay was as I had left it, cold, silent, empty. I sealed the airlock behind me and stood for a moment in the familiar hum of my vessel, letting the weight of the past hours settle into my bones. The Codex rested against my chest, a gentle warmth through the fabric of my coat. I moved to the cockpit, intending to begin the departure sequence, but as I reached for the controls, the comm system crackled to life. A voice, cold and precise, filled the cabin. Unidentified vessel. This is Imperial cruiser dominance. You are in violation of restricted space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. I looked up through the viewport and saw them. 3 ships, sleek and deadly, emerging from the shadow of the glass moon. They must have been waiting, sensors dark, watching. They had known someone would come for the Codex eventually. My hand moved to the ignition, but I stopped. The primary engine was still damaged. I could run, but I would not get far. And a firefight in a docking bay with no shields was suicide. So I did what I do best. I bought time. I opened a channel. This is the Independent Transport Wanderer's Lament. I am conducting salvage operations under Article 7 of the Outer Frontier Accord. I have the right to... You have no rights here, pirate. We know who you are, Gordon. We know what you carry. My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice calm. I am not sure what you mean. The Codex of Stars. Hand it over, and we will allow you to leave. Refuse, and you will burn with that station. I glanced at the controls. The fuel reserves were low, but not empty. The thrusters still had power. If I timed it right, I need to think about it, I said, stalling. You have 60 seconds. I closed the channel and moved fast. My hands flew over the console, rerouting power from life support to the thrusters. It would give me one good burst, enough to clear the docking bay and break into open space. After that, I would be vulnerable, but vulnerable was better than captured. I strapped into the pilot seat and counted down. 10 seconds. 5. I ignited the thrusters. The ship lurched forward, slamming me back into the seat. The docking clamps tore free with a shriek of metal, and suddenly I was in motion, hurtling through the bay toward the open void. Behind me, the Imperial ships opened fire. Energy blasts tore through the space where I had been moments before, scorching the walls and sending debris spinning into the dark. I banked hard, weaving between cargo containers and support beams, using the wreckage of the station as cover. The cruisers followed, their weapons lighting up the darkness. I pushed the thrusters to maximum, feeling the ship groan under the strain. The exit loomed ahead, a jagged opening where the docking doors had frozen. Almost there. A blast clipped my cybered wing and alarm screamed. The ship shuddered, listing to one side, but I corrected, keeping the nose aimed at freedom. And then I was through. Into open space. Into the black. The cruisers pursued, relentless. But I had one advantage. I knew this sector. Every asteroid field, every debris cloud, every hiding place. I dove toward the glass moon, skimming low over its crystalline surface. The cruisers followed, but they were larger, slower. I pulled into a tight spiral, using the moon's gravity to slingshot myself around its far side. By the time the cruisers rounded the moon, I was gone, lost in the shadow of the station's outer ring. I cut the engines and drifted, silent and dark, while the Imperial ships searched. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, they gave up. The cruisers turned and vanished into the stars, leaving me once more alone. I exhaled, my hands shaking on the controls. That had been too close. But I had escaped. Again. I always do. I spent the next 3 days drifting in the silence, repairing what I could with limited supplies. The starboard wing was scorched but functional. The primary engine was still dead, but I managed to coax a little more life out of the secondaries. It would be enough to reach the nearest way station. On the third night, or what I called night, based on the ship's internal clock, I sat in the observation deck, the Codex in my hands. I turned it over, watching the light shift within its crystalline structure. So much power, so much potential, and so much danger. Kael had been right. The galaxy was not ready for this, not yet, perhaps not ever. But I would keep it safe. I would carry it forward as I had carried so many other burdens until the time was right, if that time ever came. I thought of Kael, alone in the echo chamber, her voice now part of the archive. I thought of Aria Voss, dying in fire and defiance. I thought of all the stories I had heard, all the lives I had touched, all the memories I carried. This is what it means to be immortal, I realized. Not to live forever, but to remember forever. And perhaps that is enough. I set the Codex aside and leaned back, gazing out at the stars. Somewhere out there, another adventure was waiting, another story to be told. But for now, I would rest. For now, I would drift, and I would dream.
Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay in the narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling panels, listening to the soft hum of the ship's systems. My mind kept returning to the echo chamber, to the sound of my younger self, desperate and pleading. Immortality had seemed like a curse then, a trap with no escape. I still was not sure it was not, but I had learned to live with it, to find purpose in the endless years, to seek out stories like the one Kael had given me, to anchor myself in the lives of others so that I did not drift away entirely. Eventually, exhaustion won, and I fell into a restless sleep. I dreamed of the glass moon, of Aria Voss standing on its surface, her arms outstretched, her ship burning behind her. She was laughing, wild and free, even as the light consumed her. "Find it," she said, though I knew she could not be speaking to me. I had not been there. I had not been born. But dreams do not follow logic. "Find what?" I asked. "The door," she said, and her laughter faded. "The door at the end of the Codex, the one I could never open." I woke suddenly, my heart pounding. The cabin was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the control panel in the adjacent cockpit. I sat up, rubbing my face, trying to shake off the dream's lingering unease. That was when I heard it. A voice. Faint.
coming from the comm system. I stood and moved to the cockpit, frowning. The comm was supposed to be offline, powered down to conserve energy, but the speakers were crackling softly, and beneath the static, I could hear words. "Gordon, can you hear me?" My blood ran cold. It was Kael's voice. I sat down quickly, flipping switches, bringing the system fully online. "Kael, is that you?" The static cleared slightly, and her voice came through, fragile but unmistakable. "Yes. I did not think this would work." "How are you transmitting?" I asked. "I thought—" She said, "I am not. Not in the way you think. I am part of the archive now. My consciousness, my memory, woven into the crystals. And the crystals, they can transmit. Weakly. Only for a short time." I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the console. "Why are you reaching out?" She said, "Because I remembered something. After you left, something important, something I should have told you." I waited, my pulse quickening. "The Codex," she said. "It is not just a map. It is a key. And there is a door, a gateway, hidden in a place the Empire has forgotten. Aria found it. She tried to open it, but she could not. She did not have the right frequency." "Frequency," I echoed. "The Codex responds to specific wavelengths. Not just light or sound, but something deeper. Emotional resonance. Memory. It is why Aria could not use it. She was brilliant, but she was not timeless." Understanding dawned. "You think I can open it?" "I think you must," Kael said, and her voice was urgent now, fading. "Because the Empire is searching for it too, and if they find it first, Gordon, you do not understand what is on the other side, what could be unleashed." "What is it? What is the door protecting?" But the signal was breaking up, her voice dissolving into static. "Find the beacon of ashen light. Follow the old routes. Trust the stars, Gordon. Trust." And then silence. I sat back, staring at the dead comm system, my mind racing. The beacon of ashen light. I knew that name. An ancient relay station, built in the earliest days of interstellar travel, long before the Empire rose. It had been abandoned for centuries, deemed too remote and too unstable to maintain. But if Kael was right, it was the key to understanding the Codex. I looked out the viewport at the endless stars. I should have felt fear, uncertainty, but instead, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. A new path, a new mystery, a reason to keep moving forward. I set a new course into the navigation system, aiming for the far edge of known space, towards the beacon of ashen light, towards whatever waited beyond.
The journey to the beacon would take weeks, even if the engines held. I had time to think, time to plan, time to second-guess every choice that had led me here. But doubt is a luxury I have learned to set aside. On the 5th day, I pulled the Codex from my coat and placed it on the navigation console, studying it in the soft glow of the cockpit lights. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, and I wondered if it was reacting to me or if I was simply imagining it. I thought about what Kael had said, emotional resonance, memory. I closed my eyes and let my mind wander,
sifting through centuries of experience. So many faces, so many voices, so much joy and sorrow and everything in between. And beneath it all, a question I had never been able to answer. Why me? Why was I the one cursed or blessed with immortality? What purpose did it serve? Was there a reason? Or was it simply random chance, a cosmic joke? I did not know. But perhaps the Codex did. I opened my eyes and picked up the crystal, holding it close. "Show me," I whispered. "Show me what you are." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the light within the crystal began to shift. Patterns emerged, flowing and twisting, forming shapes I almost recognized. Star maps, coordinates, pathways through space that defied conventional physics. And something else. A word written in ancient script, glowing brighter than the rest. Etherian. I did not know what it meant, but as I stared at it, a warmth spread through my chest. Not physical, but something deeper. A sense of recognition, as though some forgotten part of me was waking up. The crystal pulsed once more, then dimmed, returning to its dormant state. I sat back, my heart racing. Whatever secrets the Codex held, they were vast, ancient, and they were meant for me. I set the crystal carefully on the console and returned my attention to the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly before me, cold and beautiful and infinite. Somewhere out there, the beacon waited, and beyond that, the door Aria could not open. I would find it. I would unlock its secrets, because that is what I do. I chase mysteries. I seek answers. I refuse to let the weight of forever crush me into stillness. The ship hummed softly around me, carrying me forward into the unknown, and I was content. The stars have a way of making you feel small. Not insignificant, not worthless, just small. A single point of light in an infinite ocean of darkness. It is humbling in the best way. I have drifted past countless suns, witnessed the birth and death of worlds, met beings who speak in mathematics and others who communicate through color and sound. I have fought tyrants and befriended ghosts. I have stolen treasures and given them away. I have loved and lost and learned to love again. And through it all, I have carried one truth with me. Stories matter. Not because they change the universe, though sometimes they do, but because they change us. They remind us that we are not alone, that our struggles, our triumphs, our quiet moments of doubt and wonder, they are all part of something larger. Kael understood that. Aria understood that. And now I understand it too. The Codex of Stars rests beside me, its secrets still locked away. But I am patient. I have time. More time than anyone should ever have. And when the moment comes, when I stand before that ancient door and the question is asked, whenever that question may be, I will be ready. Because I am Gordon, the timeless adventurer. And this is only the beginning. Somewhere beyond the next nebula, another story awaits. A new chapter in the endless book of the cosmos. A memory waiting to be made. But for now, we drift and we dream. Next time on Chronicles of the Timeless Adventurer, the Beacon of Ashen Light.